It's October 7th. I was just talking about how I got set up to be assaulted and to be harmed. When I was told by Michelle Erickson that I was threatened and intimidated and coerced and told if I did not hitchhike and find my own way to a psychological appointment at the very last minute. She basically told me a day or two, it was I think one day before the appointment, that if I did not figure a way out to this appointment myself, because the state wasn't going to do it, which they're required to do, and they had time to put things together, but they chose not to. She said the state already told her, and she was letting me know, that they would not reschedule, that it was the last time they would reschedule anything, and that if I wanted a psychological evaluation to comply with the court order after that, then I was on my own. Basically, I had to have this psychological evaluation done by somebody that CPS approved, because it was for them. And they told me if I didn't put myself in dangerous circumstances, if I wasn't willing to endanger my own life, that I was going to lose my son, because they would not ever give me another chance to have a psychological evaluation. And on the way, the reason I mentioned Judge Nakata is because Judge Nakata did some favors for Michelle Erickson later, and then Judge Nakata threatened me. Pretty much a threat that would rise to the level of a felony, I think. And while I'm sure there are other judges in that town, there may be one in particular that has some kind of a criminal background, or maybe is involved in cocaine or something. I think Judge Nakata is looking really suspicious, because first of all, when my cousin first told me that there was a judge he dealt drugs to, it was right after we'd been talking about Nakata. And Nakata was, and the other thing that I noticed was after he told me this, and after I was told that there were a bunch of judges that wanted to kill me and put a hit on me by somebody in Wenatchee, I was driving to Seattle for something. And let me remember just a moment when that occasion was. I think I could, if I think about it, I'll remember the exact date. It was possibly before my son was taken away from me. I'll have to think and I'll remember exactly whether it was before or after, and I do know that it was nice weather at the time, and I do know that it was after I had gone to the FBI person in Wenatchee, the field FBI person, Wes, and tried to report Judge Gerald Warren for giving me an illegal suspension of my license. And then I didn't mention Nakata, but I don't think that I mentioned her, but I maybe told him that that was the only person that I'd been talking about with my cousin, and then he said something. But I possibly didn't even mention her name, and then Wes just jumped to her defense, saying something like, I have full faith in Nakata and Judge Warren. Something like that. One thing that happened, it was either after that happened, or it was after my fiance left, and I had to go to Seattle for something, possibly when I was living with that woman and the Canadian man in Canada. I was being chased around by a Japanese mafia person who had tattoos all over his arms. All I could see were his upper arms from his car that he was in, but I could tell he was Japanese. He was not Korean, and he was not Chinese. And I never forgot it, because I thought, why in the world is this Japanese gangster-looking person who looks like he has a ton of money, why is he following me around and looking at me with hate? And he was kind of laughing at me too. And this was right in the downtown Seattle area. And he was driving a very nice and very expensive sports car. The windows were rolled down, I think, because it was nice out. And I could see the full, like his whole, I saw his arm from, it would have been his left arm. I saw his left side of his body because he was to the right of me. So my car was right here. I mean, I'm from my own direction here. My car was here, and I'm driving over here, and I looked over. He's right here, and he's coming up alongside me to get a really close look and basically try to intimidate me on the road. And I looked over, and I saw, and then he was driving on the driver's side. Excuse me. And had his arm out holding the steering wheel. And I just remember seeing an entire arm of tattoos. It was solid tattoos, and they were very nicely done tattoos. It looked very expensive. They were multicolored, and it wasn't like a little ring around his bicep or anything. It was his entire arm, like a sleeve or whatever they call it. And that always stood out in my mind because I didn't know anybody that was Japanese, and I just had this instant impression. I actually thought at the time, does he work for Bullivant Hauser Bailey? I kind of wondered if he was just some rich kid that was a lawyer, but he has this alternate side that he hides under his Oxford, lawyer shirt. And or maybe a PI for the Bullivant Hauser Bailey firm, something like that. Because he looked like he had some kind of a professional job. He was getting by just fine. And at the time, the only thing that came to my mind was Bullivant Hauser Bailey, the law firm. And they have a branch in Seattle. But the other possibility, if we start talking about Asian gangster stuff, is that Alicia Nakata is Japanese American, and I don't trust her. I have no idea why Wes, the FBI person, would say he has full confidence in the judges there, I mean, how would he have full confidence? I mean, does nobody ever have a problem like I've had? And no one has ever seen corruption, or people are just too scared to report it? And later, down the road, Nakata did a huge favor for Michelle Erickson. And I kind of felt like, if we think about it, if Michelle Erickson was doing a favor for someone by driving me into the Seattle area, vulnerable, without transportation, and put into a very dangerous position, if Michelle Erickson is driving me into that position, maybe Nakata wants to thank her in some way down the road. So maybe they're doing each other some favors. And it would then make sense as to why Judge Nakata wanted to award Michelle Erickson a restraining order against me when Michelle Erickson knew that I hadn't done anything wrong. And the other person that was involved with that restraining order and encouraging that was Tony Block, because he was there at the same time that Michelle was when they were trying to make me look like I need to be banned from their CPS offices. And basically what Nakata did, down the road, is she threatened me. She said several different threats publicly in the public courtroom. And then she tried to protect Michelle Erickson in ways that she didn't deserve to be protected. And said that I could never talk about Michelle Erickson. Why would Judge Nakata be so interested in my not talking about her unless Judge Nakata didn't want me to talk about how I was forced into Seattle with no transportation into and threatened to go into a dangerous situation upon penalty of losing my son if I did not? Judge Nakata said in that courtroom hearing, which I will talk about later because it's down the road, that all those things happen. But she said, you can talk about me all you like, but you cannot talk about Michelle Erickson. Oh, if I'm talking about Judge Nakata all I like, then I have to talk about Michelle Erickson. Because they go together. And then Judge Nakata did something really bizarre.